Hey guys, this is Adam, and I am here with Coach Kat Peters,
Hi.
and we're doing the Mind Over Matter podcast. And what a perfect time to do it with Thanksgiving coming up. This is the time of year where every influencer tells you what to do with your diet.
Yes, exactly. This is where you start seeing all the graphics on Instagram that's like this particular side, you need to do this many jumping jacks and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. What are you doing with your clients? I know it varies, but
So the people that have shows coming up, which is not that many, unfortunately, they kind of know my drill. It's kind of a tough cookie situation. You're still in prep, so we got to just let it be what it is. But everybody else, since I don't have, end of the season, don't have a lot of competitors at this point of the year, but everyone else is, for the most part, able to just have a mindful meal that's off the books.
absolutely. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I only have a few people left in prep, a few getting ready for nationals. So really not a whole lot going on. And then I'm leaving it up to my clients on what they want to do if they don't have anything coming up. Some people don't even like Thanksgiving food. So we have to remember some people don't even celebrate it. My Canadians have already celebrated it.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, everyone gets to handle this a little bit differently. And me and Dr. Joe do a lot of talks on that in our contest prep university format. But why we're really here is just mentally. And some of the things that I hear a lot of my clients talking about is that one family member who they just know they're going to say something along the lines of, I can't believe you're eating, or, or why aren't you eating? And
Yes.
that's kind of what I wanted to talk about most here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic topic. It can be really hard to set boundaries with loved ones. I would say that's like the hardest group because, you care about them and you have to see them. So it's not like you can just afford to upset people in some situations. But at the same time, it can be difficult to advocate for yourself and be like, hey, like this is what's up. Um, and I mean, I would say that, this is even where you kind of get into the situation where you might have loved ones that are like, oh, what you're doing is unhealthy, for like the people on prep that can't partake in Thanksgiving or holidays, or any celebrations really. Um, that can be very difficult. I know, just I'm kind of a whatever kind of person, so it doesn't bug me so much. But I definitely hear from other friends that I have, clients that are like, I don't know what to do because my mom or my uncle or whomever just keeps laying into me about how what I'm doing is unhealthy.
Yeah, a lot of people do have those opinions. A lot of people assume there's disordered eating involved. And just because someone does something doesn't mean they have an addiction or a
Right.
problem. And a lot of people are really quick to diagnose without a license on stuff
Yeah.
like that. One thing that, really stands out to me this weekend, I've actually started dieting. And it is hard when I'm with my competitors who don't get to eat a whole lot and then they want to go out and eat. And a lot of them eat a ton of food or a decent amount. And I really came to realize that, this weekend I stuck to mainly protein only meals when I was, you know, at the show, and kind of restricted my calories because I didn't really have a whole lot of time to track. However, I should have packed my meals, I'll say that. But just as a good course of action, I would do a larger meal at night, but within moderation. And I realized that I can still be happy and have a good time with my crew without eating, maybe more food than I normally would, or maybe just as much as I used to. And I was still able to eat, be present, and enjoy people's company. And I think that a lot of us forget that we can do that. And we fixate on being hungry so often because we're in prep, and a lot of times we look to solve that hunger. And even when we're in the peak of our bulk, and I even thought about this because now I'm transitioning into weight loss. I'm like, even when I was eating as much as I wanted, I was still hungry. So now I just find different ways to deal with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's been really helpful, is just knowing I can be present and still enjoy things. When hunger kicks in, I just do try to ignore it and say, hey, it's not about the food, it's about the company. And that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is, I'm going to be fully honest. That's something that I still struggle with is when I'm invited to, events, and especially when I'm like deep into prep, that's when it's really tough because you are just so fixated on that pizza you can't have, or, whatever it is. But I've found that, and maybe this will work for some people, of course, given that you don't have people guilt tripping you for the fact that you're not, eating. But for me, if I have like a diet soda or like some, unsweetened iced tea or a coffee or something that I can just sip on, it kind of helps to keep me sane so that I'm not as focused on like the fact that I'm maybe not eating and everyone else is eating or whatever's going on, so that way you still have something that you're indulging in, but it's not really taking you away from your long-term goals for like an immediate satisfaction of food that will always be there.
Absolutely. What would you say to someone that does have that family member that's going to judge them, how to maybe prepare for that, and then two, how to handle those situations?
So unpopular opinion here. It is one of those things where you got to be real with yourself that it's going to be an uncomfortable situation regardless, and by that you have to prepare yourself that either, your choices are pretty much: one, don't say anything, let them continue to lay into you, and you're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to, feel terrible when you go home or whatever. Or two, you're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to feel bad because you're going to have to, create some conflict and let them know, like, hey, this is my boundary and you're violating that boundary. And, I understand where you're coming from, but this is an important goal to me. And so I would really appreciate your support. Either way, somebody's going to be upset. But at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And so I think it's important to put yourself first. If you're going to be uncomfortable either way and it's going to suck either way, you might as well be the one that's going to, walk away a little happier and a little lighter and, proud of yourself for setting that boundary instead of, feeling bad and not having said anything.
Absolutely. You approach that perfectly, because I was thinking there's two options here. One, they may not say anything at all, and then you
Mhm.
don't have to worry about it. Two, they say something which is going to be uncomfortable, and then you have the option to, take that discomfort essentially and maybe kind of keep it uncomfortable in a way to establish comfort from the situation. So you may have to speak up and you may have to say some things. I think a lot of people's reaction is to say something back that will hurt them. And that just takes it to a whole nother level of discomfort, because now two crimes have been committed essentially. So if I love what you said, stating that that's a boundary, like, hey, don't say that, and or this is something that I don't really want to talk about right now, and you have
Yeah.
every right to do that, and people will more so hopefully respect that. And chances are, if they are at your family Thanksgiving, it's not going to be the last one that you see of them.
Right.
So keeping it as comfortable as possible is key.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to go back to that for a second. The fact that you mentioned that, some people they'll go right with the verbal dagger, right? Oh, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. And I say this a lot to people, even have to remind myself. The thing to keep in mind is that as human beings, our reaction even other people's reaction, it's usually a personal thing. Like anybody's reaction has more to do with them than it has to do with you. So even though they might be, saying something that's mean or hurts you, it says more about where they're at than it actually says about what's going on for you. And I think when you kind of remember that, it can help you to, take the venom back a little bit, at least dial it back a little bit so that you're not, inflicting wounds also when clearly this person just has something that they got to figure out and it probably has very little to do with you.
Absolutely. A lot of times I do think when people make, statements about us dieting, it's because you're succeeding at something that they're afraid to try. And that's difficult for some people. They
Yeah.
feel exposed because you're successful at something. And that stinks. It doesn't have to be that way. We're all in different walks of life in this journey. And, I've always said this, people that maybe don't excel at losing weight or having the best body composition in the world, they're probably excelling in other areas of their life very well. So, like not everyone's going to be the total package in terms, even people that we think are usually have some kind of, you know, um, you know, they have something that they're not that great at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And, we have to keep in mind too that when people have those reactions, like you never know if maybe they struggled with an eating disorder themselves way back in the day, or they had a loved one that did. And so, they're seeing everything from the lens of that perspective, and granted, with bodybuilding there can be a fine line between disordered and completely fine, and it has a lot to do with that ability to self-reflect and recognize where it's getting a sticky situation and where it's not. So it's not always something that is outwardly visible to other people to know that you're a candidate for potentially being at risk for something or not. So again, it's all about them. It's their experiences and they just project it. We all do it. You project your experiences and your story onto other people as a way to relate. And sometimes it's not good.
Sometimes people also tell me, they end up being the, and regretfully almost the topic of conversation at the dinner table. And sometimes that feels uncomfortable, and people are just genuinely sometimes very curious about bodybuilding.
Mhm.
Not many people know many people who have done it typically. So sometimes that can sound like they're digging or trying to find something wrong. But sometimes we have to realize sometimes we get annoyed easily because we're hungry and we think someone might be calling us out. But in general, they're just really curious about what we're doing. And before you know it, in the next week or two, when you're like mad about Thanksgiving dinner and being the center of attention, you might have someone reaching out to you saying, "Hey, I asked so many questions about this, and you've kind of made me think I might want to do it too." And I have had clients who, have been in those situations where they thought that they were being cornered a little bit. And really, that person was just so genuinely interested in what they were doing. They felt like the spotlight was on them and they were being interrogated.
Yeah, yeah, I know that it can be difficult sometimes. And, especially when, if you're an experienced competitor, chances are you've had somebody say something rude at some point, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, or whether it's even sometimes a stranger on the internet. And so it's hard not to feel attacked sometimes and not know how to distinguish between curiosity and like somebody trying to drag you.
Yeah.
But I personally, I'm kind of a fan of straight talk. So, I mean, ask them, pull them aside later. It's uncomfortable, yeah, but pull your family member aside and be like, "Hey, like, how did you mean this? Why were you asking?" And hopefully they'll be honest with you, but try not to assume that, even though you're hangry and you just want to eat, the Hawaiian rolls, I understand. Just take a deep breath, ask people, and try to remember that it's a them thing. It's always a them thing, and it's not necessarily personal, even if it is a personal attack.
Yeah. even beyond Thanksgiving, we go through this every day, don't we? When we bring a meal in, like usually someone asks us. I remember going back to work, my coworkers were always asking me about my diet,
Yep.
but I felt like I was being drilled. But I can think of a couple times, they would say, "Hey, my doctor said I had high cholesterol, so I'm just curious." They would ask me away from the other guys because they didn't want to be vulnerable. And they're like, the reason I was asking, because I probably need to lose some pounds. Um, so that was always cool once it came out. I think sometimes as competitors, it's so routine to get asked that it does get annoying to us sometimes, not on purpose, but we just get tired of answering the same questions all the time. So sometimes we just feel like we're being attacked, and that happens.
I completely understand. I've definitely been there before where I've snapped at people unintentionally when they're like, "Well, what do you do? What do you eat? What does your breakfast look like?" And I'm like, "I just track my macros. That's all I do. It's the boring stuff." You kind of go through the same answers. And I know that can definitely get very old, but it is cool when it's like a curiosity thing and they kind of want to know like the ins and outs of it because it can be very cool.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving food?
I gotta go with stuffing.
Yeah, I like stuffing too. Do you do oysters in your stuffing or turkey?
Usually turkey.
Okay, my family's kind of weird. We'll do oysters in ours. It's pretty good though.
Nice.
But I'm a mashed potato fan. I it's so simple, but it's something I love, a pool of butter in the center. So that's my go-to. I mean,
Can't go wrong with mashed potatoes. You cannot go wrong with like any kind of potatoes. So I feel you there.
yeah. Now, do you have a favorite food overall then that's not Thanksgiving traditional?
Uh like a family get together food
Or
or
just really anything that doesn't necessarily fall within Thanksgiving food?
um I mean I am like super basic, like cookies, pizza, and ice cream. What any competitor would say. That is still my go-to. But yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
you
much
and you and
those.
Zach like your ice cream, that's for sure.
We do. We definitely do. We've kind of switched to like cookies lately, but we definitely do love our ice cream.
I've been a big sushi fan ever since one of my college professors who was on tenure. So essentially, he could make his own rules and he loved connecting with students. He took me to a Chinese restaurant when me and him met up, and he's like, you should really try different things in life. And he's like, and sushi's one of them. And I was like, I can't believe I'm going to try this. And I wasn't sure what to expect, but then it grew on me, and it's one of my favorite foods. So, Paul Saltzman, I'm glad you had me try sushi at some point in time. Excellent teacher, just really like to get to know his students well. He was like that teacher on campus that everyone loved, obviously.
That's awesome. It's funny that you were a later in life sushi fan because that's me also. I actually had never tried like sushi with raw fish. It was always like the like vegetable rolls and things like that. Was a vegetarian for a long time in high school, so that's why. But my husband, other coach, Zach Peters, was like the reason that I tried sushi with raw fish, and I love it also. So that was actually I think that was our first date, actually. So
Oh, that's awesome. I was
yeah,
going to ask if that was an early date with you guys.
yep, yep, very
That's
very
cool.
first. So that was very memorable, and sushi's in that rotation of favorite foods for sure.
Isn't that the best part about dating is that you like someone so much you're willing to try some different things, and you don't have to date someone that's just like you. I actually encourage you to date someone that almost is so different from you that and I say this with my wife all the time. I tried this food or this restaurant, which I usually just stick to what I know. And She definitely gets me trying things outside the box, and I come back and say, "Man, I really like that," or "I really like that TV show, and I didn't think I would." So, it's
Yeah.
always good to have that.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I mean, granted, I'm pretty adventurous with food now. I think competing will do that to you. You know, anything, pretty much anything, you're like, well, it could be good. I'll try it. It's food, right? But yeah, TV shows, Zach definitely gets me to watch stuff when I'm paying attention. I'm notorious for playing on my phone, but um, whenever I'm paying attention, he definitely can pick out some great shows that would have never watched and they end up being awesome.
Same, same. Well, I think this was a great one. I hope that everyone has an awesome judgment-free Thanksgiving,
Yes.
and we will be back next week with another Mind Over Matter podcast.
Bye, guys.